Hello! So for today we are going to be talking about the different types of cells and how they're alike and how they're different. So if you would please kindly go to page 21 in your notes. The first thing we're going to compare and contrast are prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. So if you remember, prokaryotic means before nucleus and eukaryotic means after nucleus. True nucleus. So prokaryotic cells are anything that's bacterial. So anything of the kingdom Archaea or Eubacteria. And eukaryotic cells are the rest, animal, plant, fungus, protists. So let's look at how they are alike. Well, first, they all have a plasma membrane. They all have cytoplasm. All cells have ribosomes. They all have genetic material. And they all share the characteristics of life. Now, I'm going to add one at the bottom here because I realize I don't have this one, and I'm very sad about that. They also all contain cytoskeleton. So they are alike in numerous ways, and these will be the same for every single cell. Now, let's look at how these guys are different. So, they're different in regard to nucleus, organelles, what their outermost layer is, and their size and complexity. And what they mean, of course, too. So, in terms of nucleus, prokaryotes have no membrane-bound nucleus at all. Eukaryotes do, as we learned from the meaning. Prokaryotes have no membrane-bound organelles. They only have ribosomes and some cytoskeleton inside for structure. They don't have mitochondria, they don't have chloroplasts, no ER, no Golgi, no lysosomes, no vacuoles, no nothing. Eukaryotes do. They have all of those organelles. They need them because eukaryotes usually make up larger organisms and therefore need the extra supplies and access to energy to survive. On a prokaryote, the outermost layer is a cell wall. Always some sort of cell wall. In a eukaryote, it depends on which one you're looking at. Fungi, some protists, and plants have cell walls, where other protists and animals have just the cell membrane. So it really depends on the cell for a eukaryote. Prokaryotes are teeny tiny, itsy bitsy, teeny tiny things. If I were to give you an example, let's just pretend the end of this little pencil eraser is my teeny tiny, itsy bitsy, teeny tiny little prokaryote. Eukaryotes are much larger and more complex. So that would be saying, well, me. Teeny tiny, itsy bitsy pencil. Me. Big difference in terms of size and complexity. And finally, as we talked about before, the naming. Prokaryote means before nucleus. Eukaryote means true nucleus. So that's how a prokaryote and a eukaryote are alike and different. Now we're going to look at animal and plant cells. So if you haven't gotten there yet, I would ask that you would kindly turn to page 25. So now we're going to discuss how animal and plant cells are alike and how they are different. Now you learned a bit about this yesterday when we were talking about organelles, but now we're going to look at this a little more closely. So, how are they alike? Well, they're both eukaryotic, so they have a nucleus. They both share the basic parts that all cells do, membrane, cytoplasm, cytoskeleton, DNA, ribosomes. They also contain a lot of similar organelles, the ERs, the Golgi, and the mitochondria. And of course, they all represent every characteristic of life because they are living things. But how are they different? Well, there are three categories we're going to look at here in terms of differences. Shape, what their outermost layer is, and the organelle difference, because those are big ones. Now, in terms of shape, a plant cell is very boxy and cubic. Animal cells tend to be rounder. When it comes to layers, plants have a cell wall on the outside. Animals have a cell membrane. And then organelle differences. They have a couple. Plants have a central vacuole, which is their big storage for waste and everything else, and a chloroplast to help them take sunlight and turn it into food, where animal cells have lysosomes to digest all the materials, because they don't have a big central chloroplast. They have a ton of little vacuoles, and they have cilia and flagella, which allows them to move. And those are the main differences here. They're not a lot. So those are the main differences of the cells we talked about: prokaryote versus eukaryote, and animal versus plant. Now you will need to know these differences, and you will need to know them especially as we go into the next couple of chapters, because we're going to be focusing in on those differences even more. So, with that being said, I'm done here for this one. So move on to the next item.